Hello, my name is Denise Santos. I am the moderator for this evening's creative conference, Atlanta Film Festival, Latinx representation in our community here in Atlanta. And I have a few wonderful people that I'll be having some wonderful conversations with. Let's start with Mahalia. She is an award-winning Haitian American filmmaker. She received her bachelor's in broadcast journalism at Oakwood University and received her MFA in film and television at the Savannah College of Art and Design in Atlanta. Throughout the course of her career, Mahalia has produced over 10 short films and a podcast called The Struggle is Real. In 2019, she co-founded the film development company Anaquana Pictures with her writing partner. The company aims to highlight people of color and women through television, film, and documentaries. Mahalia has been featured as a rising filmmaker in Oz Magazine, Medium.com, Voyage ATL, and Movie Maker Magazine. Then we have Erik. Erik is a writer, director, and creative storyteller from Canoavanas, Puerto Rico. Ojalá que I said that right. He brings a much needed new perspective through his work, creating through thought-provoking stories that explore the experiences of young people of color in modern America. Erik is not beholden to a single medium, incorporating everything from music and cuisine to politics to bring his visions to life. Erik holds a MFA in film and television from Savannah College of Art and Design and a BA in mass communications from Universidad de Turabo. He splits his time between Atlanta, Puerto Rico, and Los Angeles, where he works as a marketing manager at 10 by 10 and a coordinator at Collective Moxie. Then we also have Erika. She is a Mexican-Norwegian actor and producer. She received her BFA in acting from the Theater School of DePaul University in Chicago, Illinois. She pursued additional training from the London Academy of Dramatic Arts, London, England, and the Upright Citizen Brigade in New York City. Erika is the founder of Cafecito Productions and executive producer for ATL, an offshoot of the New York City Arts Initiative. Cafecito Productions film Mi Casa can be seen on all HBO platforms. Since 2021, Cafecito Productions has made 3 short films, which have screened at film festivals like Palm Springs Short Fest, Cucalorus, Cleveland International Film Fest, and many more. Erika will direct her next film, Trailer Trash Magic, which was also the winner of the Georgia Film Impact Grant. She is rep by Taylor D. Thomas Alexander White Agency. And then we also have Caitlin. She is an American Chilean director, actor, producer, and educator based in Atlanta. She received her BFA from NYU's Tisch School of the Arts and her MA from the London Academy of Music and Dramatic Arts. Caitlin teaches acting courses as a faculty member at Emory University, where she is also the co-artistic director of Theater Emory. She is an executive producer of the ATL Arts Summer Theater Festival, which celebrates theater makers of marginalized genders, and an executive producer of Cafecito Productions, a film production company whose short film Mi Casa is currently playing on all HBO platforms. Hello, hola everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hola,
Thank you for having us.
Of course. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to have this platform. Thank you to Atlanta Film Festival for sharing this platform with us so that we can have this much needed, much important conversation so we can keep the conversation going. So let's get started. We'll start off with the first question. I'd love to hear from everybody, and I'll just call on you in the order that I see it. Let's start with, how did you get started in this business? And was there someone that inspired you? Caitlin.
Great. I got started in this business, gosh, kind of young. If I was to say the business of storytelling, which is kind of where I'll start. I was a dancer for a really long time and danced professionally when I was in high school, and danced with a company in New York called KDNY. I was primarily a modern dancer. Got a really bad hip injury and changed all my college auditions to acting instead of dance, because I just knew I really liked being on stage and loved performing and storytelling. And I knew that that's what I wanted to do with my life, no matter how I was going to do that. So, you know, I've been in it for a while now, but speaking professionally, I really got my start after and kind of in the middle of college, doing short films in New Orleans. Actually was my very first short film experience, and, you know, kind of working something out with a rehearsal schedule during college to work down in New Orleans during a spring break. And fell in love with the medium of film then and there. Professionals that have really inspired me, gosh, that's a really hard question. I think there are so many, from when I can think of being really little and watching like Shirley Temple films, just knowing that that's something I really wanted to do, to then also we're a big Rita Moreno fan club in my family. So yes, Erik. So watching Rita Moreno's films when I was younger, I think there's a lot of different inspirations that have come and gone throughout my career. Currently, I'm really inspired by the Atlanta film community and by especially the amazing women creators that I have met since living in Atlanta the past 6 years.
Very nice. Erika?
I also had an early start. I think my first play was in second grade. And then I kind of didn't look back. And it has been quite the adventure since then. I think I didn't start producing though until after college. So acting was my main track for all of those years. And I think I was inspired by the people who made it possible, and that's my grandparents and my parents. And Jennifer Lopez, but I knew her as Selena in the movie when I was like 6. And I'm pretty sure I wept for days when I realized she was no longer alive. But I think that this kicked off my love of storytelling, that and West Side Story, Rita Moreno as well. But yeah.
Mahalia, how about you?
For me, I'd like to say that coming from the Haitian culture, I just like to say that like storytelling was in my blood, because if you know anything about like Haitian culture, is that when we retell stories, we come with our own sound effects, we come with the dramatic thing. It's always over the top. So I just felt like that was in my blood from the beginning. My mom used to tell me that when I was a kid, like when I had my Barbie dolls, I would make soap operas out of my Barbie dolls. So that was always a thing, but I really didn't get into film until I went to college. And I was speaking to a professor who knew that I really liked storytelling, and they said, you should just pursue it, just go for it and do it. So I did switch my major. I ended up going to SCAD, which is where I met Erik. And we really started working together to write scripts and, create stories that highlight women and everything like that. And I think the people who really inspired me the most was Viola Davis. She's amazing. I loved her. And then recently, people like Quinta Brunson and Issa Rae, just going from the independent sphere and making your own content and building your own brand, and then now killing it in the industry. So inspiring for me.
How about you, Erik?
I think that similar to Mahalia, I think my people inspire me a lot. I mean, growing up in Latino families, it's like always storytelling, always telling something, always breaking something down so you can easily understand it. But just being Caribbean is like an extra layer of intensity to storytelling. So I think that really, I just grew up with storytellers, and my great grandfather used to tell us stories all the time. The way that he just broke everything down, just inspired me. In terms of just getting into filmmaking, I did a short film when I was like 14, and I made everybody at my church act. It was a very small church in the middle of the mountains in Puerto Rico, and it was horrible. I see it today and I cringe, but it's like one of the first moments that I ever like enjoy storytelling. Then undergrad in Puerto Rico, I was a journalist, and I kind of got tired of telling other people's stories, and that's how I made the jump to Atlanta to start, exploring my own voice within that. And this day is kind of cheesy, but it's true. I think that what really inspires me is just other Latino filmmakers. I think that talking to them and seeing the way that they view the world and tell it through their stories, I think is very inspirational. There's many Latino people that I do admire, but I think that, and just even I enjoy reggaeton a lot. and but old school reggaeton, that's always in my heart. But people like Teo Calderon, because the way that they break stories in their songs is just amazing. And even salsa music, La Lupe, I love La Lupe. And I think music, I think, was a very specific inspiration of telling stories and how to tell stories and how to grab people to make sure that they stick with you until the end.
And by the way, identifying with someone who looks like you is not cheesy at all. So that brings
Right.
me to the next one. Were there any challenges that you faced getting started? Because like that you felt that same way. And I would love to hear from everybody, because I think that this could really be something that could branch out into something else. So Caitlin, we'll go back to you. Were there any challenges that you faced getting started, and how did you overcome them?
Great question. I think I'll start with acting first, because that's kind of where I started. Challenges I faced and honestly continue to face in acting is always kind of trying to meet where am I being cast as versus what are the stories I really want to tell. And that is really why I started producing, because there's a gap there, you know, in the stories that a casting director or a director or an agent is going to tell me that I can tell versus the stories that are inside of me. Because I'm a white presenting Latina, I recognize that I'm not always going to be able to tell the stories that best represent my culture. So that was an exciting thing in getting to start. So when Erika asked me to jump on board this crazy train of Cabecito Productions and really producing in general, I was so excited because this felt like being able to take some of the control back. But in general, for acting, I think really maintaining the craft. So always taking classes, always being a lifelong student is something, as an educator now, I really, really advocate for. So staying on top of classes, staying on top of the craft, and also knowing that there are different seasons of life. You know, I'm not the actor I was when I was 21 in New York thinking, oh, my big break is just going to come, right? This is a lifelong pursuit. It's a marathon. It's not a race. So keeping that in mind, like I'm a storyteller till the day I die. And I'm going to continue to be, because it's all I know how to be, right? Anything else would be false to me. So keeping that pursuit and keeping that passion alive is something that's a daily challenge, and something that some days I rise to and some days I don't, and that's that. When it comes to producing, again, I find what's really exciting about that is again, being able to take some of that control back. And more than anything, being able to collaborate. So being able to bring all these different voices together and unify people over a common thread, which is the story, or uncommon threads, which again can be the story. That's an opportunity to overcome and to represent in different ways that just makes me so excited. And yeah, I'm thrilled that this is kind of where my career has taken me so far, and that I'm able to blend all these different interests together ultimately.
Erika, how about you?
Yeah, I think similarly to not being in control, it was a shock to the system when I graduated college. I think that like I was not going to play the roles that I wanted to play because someone else thought I couldn't or shouldn't. And what that was a feeling of not being enough. My mother is white, my dad is Mexican, and I never felt I was enough for any of them. I wasn't fitting into one box and I wasn't fitting to the other box, but I didn't know who I was in terms of that. And that made it really difficult, because on top of that, the casting directors or directors or studios or theater productions were also deciding that for me. And I think, when we think about Latina representation in Hollywood, it's really easy to think of LA. It's really easy to think of New York, but I grew up in the South, And I grew up super connected to my Mexican family, like living there half the year. And I didn't see those people represented on TV shows. So it was a shock to the system when I realized that that was not going to be an easy feat. And I would be lying if I told you in that moment I was like, oh, I know the solution for it. I think the solution kind of came to me the years later after being so frustrated. And I think that there's a lot of limitations. I think that I lived in LA for a little bit, and there's a lot of a scarcity mindset. So the people are not always willing to share their wins because how long will they have them? And I felt that in the Latino community sometimes, and that was kind of scary or off-putting or discouraging. So that's always a constant reminder, like Caitlin was talking about, it's a constant game to like rise up to the occasion, whether it's for your own craft, whether it's for what you're trying to do, whether it's for, the empires that we're all trying to build. And by the way, with those bios, we're all building them. So just wanted to say that, like, everyone's killing it right now. But I think that like the struggle of, even coming against your own community has been difficult for me. And then in terms of producing, like logistically, I am a woman and I am half Latina, and I am someone who people don't want to give money to easily. I have to prove myself a lot. Where's your feature? Where's your second feature? Where's your third feature? Did you produce a full TV show? Well, I don't know. Have you? I'm trying. So it feels like, a lot of the logistical stuff kind of hits us in the face a lot. Once we've started that producing journey. But yeah, I think the most challenging thing is convincing yourself that you are enough and that your stories and your family stories and your people stories are also enough.
Love that. Mahalia, how about you?
Yeah, kind of just picking back off of what Erika said, is that mentality of we have to work twice as hard to get half as far as some others. And especially with being Black and Latina, like Erika was saying, it's like people want to know, what have you done so far before they can hand over any cash, where someone else could come along and just have an iota of an idea and people are throwing money at them. So on the producing side, that can be very difficult because you have to prove yourself in order to move forward. And then for the writing aspect, for me, which I've seemed to be having difficulty with, is getting people to accept authentically your culture. So for example, I wrote a script, and in the script, the daughter is the daughter of an immigrant. And of course, the parents are like, you have three choices: doctor, lawyer, engineer. But the daughter wants to be an artist, right? And so one of the notes that I received from a colleague was that I don't understand why the mom is so insistent on her daughter becoming a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer. Like, they're in America now. Shouldn't her mom like be supportive? And I'm like, baby, that is not at all. In most Caribbean families, that is not at all accurate. And so having to explain things like that and getting people to realize what is authentically in the culture has been somewhat of a hurdle, because they don't see it as that, when in reality, it very much is. So that's been one of the difficulties so far. But it's getting better.
It's getting better, you're saying?
Yeah, I think now with like the expansion of like TikTok and social media, like I think people are getting a bird's eye view into certain cultures and how certain people talk and everything like that. And I think that now there's more, of course, nothing changes overnight, but there is more of a push now towards seeing more authentic stories versus just tropes.
That's definitely, I think, one of the positives about social media, right? That it's exposing so much of the negative and the positive, right? So people that aren't doing it are being called out, but then there are people out there who also just want to show part of their culture, or trying to share recipes. I've seen videos where people are walking through their home countries where they're from, and they're like, oh, this is where I'm from. And people are so intrigued by that. And I totally agree with you. I think that that's really going to be something that's super helpful to people who just want to be enlightened, who just don't know and are ignorant. I don't think ignorance is a bad word. It's just not knowing, right? So it's really helping people understand more. Erik, how about you?
I think I agree with what everybody said, and I'm like, you're just like, yes, exactly. But I think just to dig in the part of like identities, right? Because Latino is such a big community, everybody has different identities and different experiences. I think as soon as you don't fit the mold of what you're supposed to be within the storytelling community, I think that's an issue to a lot of people. And I think even with, for example, a lot of like different Latinos, even within the Caribbean experience, like Mahalia and I share a lot of things that are close together because we're Caribbeans, but there's differences in that. And even to take it a little bit more personal, like Puerto Ricans who are from the island and Puerto Ricans who are from New York, we're the same people, but different experiences. I think that as soon as you write out of that, that's an issue to a lot of people. And it's almost demonized. And like just talking about experience, I remember writing a script about a Puerto Rican revolution, and one of the notes that I got that made me super angry was that I was showing the American culture and the Puerto Rican culture, and the person giving me a note kept referring to Puerto Rican culture as the pagan culture, and multiple times. And it was just infuriating to like read that. And another part, Mahalia and I write all of our scripts together. Well, 95% of our scripts together. She's my writing partner, one of my best friends. But we wrote a story together, and in Georgia, there was a big thing where you have to prove that you were Puerto Rican to get the license, the driving license. And it was like a 12 page with 55 questions or trick questions to any Puerto Rican who came from the island to get a license. A lot of people failed because they were like specific, they were like designed to confuse people. And we wrote it, and like one of the comments that we had, it was I think it was like, I'm trying to recall the exact word, Mahalia, but I think it was like, is it fantasy? It's a little bit too fantastical for this. It doesn't happen in real life. And I'm like, you can research, like that's happening like to Puerto Ricans and to non-Puerto Ricans, because it's an attack to it was an attack to all Latinos in Georgia. And like those things that you have to defend your experience, it makes you, it sometimes just drains you. And sometimes I remember a point of my career that I wanted just to start writing the stereotypical stuff, because that's how people see you. So, but I think fighting against that, it's very tiring, but I think it's worth it, because as soon as we started getting, like Mahalia said, as authentic as we can get on our script, that's when we started seeing results. And I think that's an important piece for it, but I think that having to defend your identity every 3 seconds is not cool. But yeah.
Can I just say something in response to that, Denise? Is that okay?
Yes.
Erik, what you were saying just is such an example of like specificity breeds universality, right? Like we are going to like the stories that are so specific because that's what's human. But I don't know where in the line of like production or studios or whatever, like that gets lost in translation. And then all we see on TV are just like those tropes and those stereotypes. But I think the more we like you're saying, tell our stories and be specific to our experiences, the more people have to get on board, because like they will, something human in them will latch on to something human in our stories. It just makes me so frustrated that gets lost down the line somewhere.
And I'm noticing that all of you as producers, some of you as actors, Erik, journalist, Mahalia, you were also starting out and you went into producing, but then you also work on professional film sets as well. And I'm noticing the one thing is that all of you wanted to take charge and put it into your own hands, where you weren't wanting to be dictated how you're supposed to write. However, you're seeing the challenges that you're having to make adjustments to appeal to a wider audience. How are you overcoming that though? How are you able to overcome that so that you can still present your authenticity, make sure that you're true to who you are, where you came from, but yet appeal to the audience that is going to want to watch your show or your film?
Also, I think Erika really hit the nail on the head with that statement of specificity breeds universality, right? Like inside of those really specific experiences, you can find a bit of you know, we've all got very different backgrounds, right? But you find a little bit of like, oh yeah, my family does that too, or yeah, I feel that way too, right? Like we find these connections across identity, across experiences. But when we fail at that is when we become this really generalized idea of an identity, right? This really stereotypical or tropic idea of an identity. So I think it's just continuing to push back and letting the people who are in charge know that like we're not interested in that. And a lot of that comes down to like economics, right? Like wanting, like supporting the storytellers who are doing that kind of work, and frankly not watching the stuff that is supporting the generalized or unspecific kind of storytelling of Latinidad especially.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Anyone else want to chime in?
I mean, I will also say that, like, I think, yes, like sticking to your guns for that, but like we all wear different clothes, maybe in our cultures, in our family. We all have different foods or different even variations of the same food. Do you know what I mean? But like, if our job is storytelling, there's going to be that universal seed that's going to be the same, and you just have to keep uncovering or keep digging until you find what that human, wild, naturalistic intention of that story is, whether it's love, whether it's anger, whether, you know, whatever those things are, that is something that we share. And I think it grows differently, right? And my experiences aren't going to be the same as Caitlin's, as yours, Denise, but it's going to be, the root might be, you know.
Yeah, just to piggyback off of what Erika said, sometimes it's trying to decipher what is the note behind the note, or what is the question behind the question, because there is a universal experience there that we all can gather from. So it's having to kind of sift through that to figure out what is the root of it. And then it's just also like the power of saying no. Like if it's a really big, like for Erik and I, if it's a deal breaker, then it's just going to be a no for us. Thank you for your time. We're just going to have to move on, because for what we're trying to do, the brand that we're trying to create, we can't we can't accept telling an inauthentic story. It just is what it is. So the power of saying no is like your wild card. And sometimes when you say no and people really look at that and they're like, oh dang, they're gonna walk away. Wait, come back. It's not that big of a deal, guys. We can work this out. So sometimes you just have to, you know, you got to stand in your truth.
Love that.
Mhm.
Erik, any thoughts?
Again, I agree with what everybody said. I think that also supporting other Latino authentic stories from Latina creatives is so important too, because I think that as Latinos, we usually just gravitate to our culture, or like a Latino story that kind of looks like us. And I think that's such a very dangerous thing, that we are creating we're creating like almost chamber rooms from like small parts of like this misconstruct, I call it a misconstruct of Latinidad. And then our story just get lost because they don't sell, they're not, people don't want to watch this. And I think that when we really support every single part of our community, that's when we're gonna start seeing like stories that resonate with us. And I know that that's going a little bit like out there, but to another question, but like it's just, I think that's just the key of it all, like making sure that we're showing up for each other. Like I don't have to, I like, if for I don't know, something trivial, like Puerto Ricans don't eat spicy food, right? But just because somebody's cooking like a spicy dish on a show, I'm not just gonna run away and I don't do that. Like, no, I'm gonna show up for other Latina creatives and make sure that they're represented, and just the whole spectrum of us, you know, Latinas, you know, Black Latinos, Indigenous, like showing up for them. I think that's such an important part of our of the success of our communities, that that if we do that, we ensure that a lot of these stories who are specific and are important are being told.
I think what I noticed, like for example, the show The Last of Us, right? they got something right, where where the lead was Latino, is Latino, right? He's from Chile, right? And so they got something right. What do you think is it that they got right? What do you think that producers should know that will be that winning ticket of a successful show, of a successful production, big or small? Because if it's in the numbers and we're showing up and we're buying the tickets, then there's money in our culture, in our communities. And some of these shows succeed and some of them don't, but a show like The Last of Us is showing success. And it's based on a video game, but I think that the producers were intentional about who they wanted to hire. Other shows like the new Scream that just came out and Wednesday, I mean, they were so intentional from what I'm hearing and reading about who they were casting and why they were casting them. Is there any advice that you would give to producers or decision makers that are in the room trying to be intentional about hiring outside of what they know or they're comfortable with? Caitlin, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think this is just a tipping point, right? And not just for the Latina community, right? Across representation across the board. You look at something like The Last of Us, and these incredible family units are being created out of necessity, out of destruction, really, right? And it's something that the show does over and over and over again in every episode so well. In a way that I think if you were to compare it to something like The Walking Dead a decade ago, which is, the other apocalyptic show, in a way that it kind of missed the mark in representation. So that shows me some level of growth, which is really exciting. And yet we have to keep going, right? Like we can't just stop at Pedro Pascal, I mean, he's everybody's daddy and I love him to death as a fellow Chileno, I think he's incredible. But we've got, it's just like, it feels like the tip of the iceberg. And I'll also say, you mentioned Scream and you mentioned Wednesday. I love it. And yet there's so much more opportunity for representation also in bodies, in color, in size. I just think that we're starting to scratch at the surface, and I'm so glad we're scratching. And I just hope that these studio heads continue to dig deeper, because the wealth of talent that is out there is insane. I mean, it's incredible. And we've got to keep challenging that. We're not just going to the same stars over and over and over again, right? Or the same storytellers over and over again. Because if we're trying to make more space at the table, we need to make this table bigger, right? So just keep going is what I would say.
And I think you touched on something really important, Caitlin, is that for me, a win for me, because I've been fighting so hard to just tell the stories that I want to tell. The win for me could have been that it wasn't a story about him being Chileno, or that there wasn't a struggle, or that it wasn't an immigrant story. I think that's really beautiful, right? And I think because we can call that out, I think we can call out what you were alluding to, Caitlin, is that it's really easy to cast the handsome white man, though he is Latino, though he is proud of his culture, though he shares his culture. That's an easy choice, rather than maybe more indigenous pick, or so that's the growth that we have, I think. But I think Wednesday, Jenna is amazing, and I think that was really cool. And again, it was a story that wasn't about her struggle as a Latina, or stereotyping her journey. She was super solid and super dynamic. And so that's what my takeaway of being excited about. But again, I think it would vary from person to person.
Mahalia?
Yeah, I think you guys hit it on the head. It's definitely, we're scratching the surface. And the key to telling good stories like that is to tell a story about someone who happens to be of this culture. And that's instead of saying, no, this is this culture and this is how, when you beat people over the brow with stuff like that, automatically feels inauthentic. So it's really building the character first and the culture around it. And then I'll say that I can't speak for Pedro Pascal because I've been avoiding The Last of Us because I'm trying to binge all the episodes at once. But watch one. And Jenna Ortega is amazing, but I think one of the things that helped with Wednesday's success was that she was vocal. She was vocal about the inauthenticity in the script, and she went and changed it to make it feel more authentic. So I think from the producing side of things and studio heads is, it's not a bad thing to cast an actor who will be, who will call out anything that is inauthentic. Because if you yourself are ignorant of it, the least you can do is cast someone who is aware and who can really help you get the product that you want. So I think those two things were, led to the success of the shows.
Erik, ¿y tú?
For me, I think that allowing Latina actors, something that Erika said that really resonates with me is that I think that the story was not about him being Chilean, being Latino. I think that it was because there's more to us. Like y'all know Puerto Ricans love our flag. And people think it has more story to it. It was illegal to fly the flag for a long time in Puerto Rico, but we love that. But a lot of people put a Puerto Rican character and they just slap a t-shirt of like Puerto Rico. There you go. They do that through like all Latinos. And if we divorce that idea that it's just, oh, that's who they are, but no, instead of seeing it from the point of view of just that's part of their identity, that's incredible. And also I want to see more Latinos playing like just fantasy characters. I'm so excited for Rosario Dawson, like incredibly excited for her. The new Blue Beetle movie, I'm gonna watch that movie like 1,000 times.
We need to plan like a movie night and we all go see that to support it.
So excited for that movie.
Good
Like Ismael Cordova in Lord of the Rings, like seeing those characters up in the screen that are not specifically tied to their, I mean, Blue Beetle, yes, but there's more to their identities. There's more to those pieces. And I think that helps people just see that they are multiple layers of somebody's identity. And we just see the growth of some of Latina actors or Latina creatives in general, of just seeing them be themselves. And even though they're playing a Jedi, they're playing an elf, they're still that. And I think that's beautiful, but I think that we need to see it more, because it's when you have stories like fantasy and sci-fi, and you see people of color playing those characters, I think it breaks all barriers. You're like, I can be an elf, I can be a Jedi, I could be a zombie killer. I think that's the beauty of those roles. But I think we need more Jedis and elves and dragon slayers and all this stuff.
I agree with you, Erik. I'm sorry. It's definitely not about our culture and constantly identifying where we're from, our struggles, how we got here, but rather, I think Mahalia, you said it, rather this is what it is and we just so happen to be.
Yeah.
As opposed to constantly pointing out what, and not that stereotypes are bad, because stereotypes can be true, right? At least that's my feeling, where it is a very typical situation with, especially first generation or direct immigrants coming to a new country. It is a pretty similar experience that resonates with so many people that first come to this country. And I speak for my mom and my families as well. So now I want to touch on community. I want to touch on the importance of our growth as creatives in this field. Do you feel that you've found your community as writers, as producers, as people that are just trying to put together an experience and be as authentic filmmakers as you can be? Do you feel like you found your community? And if you haven't, what do you think is lacking to create that community?
Denise, quickly, do you mean within like the Latina community or just in Atlanta, or okay?
Well, I mean, however it resonates to you, because I think as individuals, if we found our community as Latina people, you can speak on that. But even in your creative field as well, feeling like maybe you haven't fit in necessarily within a certain field or a certain group of people, and wanting to fit in.
Yeah, that's a great question, Denise. I have such a complicated relationship with it. I think being a white presenting Latina woman, raised in the South, yet also raised partly in Chile, living again like half of my year there and here, there, like Erika mentioned earlier, having that sense of like not really knowing where you belong, which I think is ultimately what really drew me to being a creative, because you get to create your own world and create your own sense of belonging. I've always felt at home among fellow artists and collaborators. Like the place I feel most comfortable is around a story, is around a table talking about development, right? Like that feels like the best drug of all, you know? Erika and I had a really amazing opportunity last, when was it? October 2021. We were accepted into the official Latino Film Festival with our first film, Mi Casa. And we went to this awards night in New York, and being in this really wildly diverse room, you know, representation from all of Latinidad, it was the most incredible feeling of just like, the room was buzzing. You feel this amount of representation, you feel this community, all these stories, again, are based around not purely identity, not purely representation, but just like existence, you know? And that was kind of a big moment for me of feeling like, whoa, I'm accepted here. I'm here representing this film that we've created that really feels like such a part of us and our story and why we're doing this. And anytime I start to feel a little bit of doubt, I just try to bring myself back to that room. As far as community here in Atlanta, I think thanks to you, Denise, and the community you've really created and bolster, and the people you've introduced me to, at least, I feel such a greater sense of community. Again, I think though that we've got a ways to go. We're again just kind of only scratching at the surface. And I kind of mean that throughout the Atlanta film community in general. Like I don't know, I guess I'm always hungry for more, and I want to meet more and more people and more collaborators. I think there can be a tendency, especially in independent film, in my experiences, can be to, you know, that idea of of scarcity, like trying to keep some things, you've got your niche, right? We've been really lucky to be able to collaborate with all sorts of people and have lots and lots of different human resources. But I'm interested to see it go further. And I think opportunities like this with Atlanta Film Festival can really use their voice to bolster that.
Yes, Erika.
I'm sitting here trying to figure out like what community means because I think it's such a word that I know has driven me my entire life. And it's something that I know is important to me, but like, what is it and when do I find it? And I think it's always evolving. I think it's a sense of safety, and it's a sense of, like you were saying, Caitlin, acceptance. And it's a sense of, I mean, not feeling lonely, even when you're alone, like that kind of vibe. And it's like, you know, just like Caitlin was saying, being around the table with people, like in conversation, in communion, or if you're in a Latino family with food, like it's that feeling to me. It's like a hug, I guess. And I think it's always evolving. So yes, I found it. And yes, I can't wait to have more. One thing that we always bring into our circle is like, we're not going to create into a vacuum. So we're constantly looking for people to come in and to share their perspectives, or to come in and change our perspectives, or to come in and introduce something else. So I always feel like yeah, that it's evolving and changing, and I'm excited to see who's going to enter my orbit to change that frequency. And in Atlanta specifically, I don't think we have a home. Like we have a home in the sense of like energetically, like Latinas in media, like that's a home, but like a space, and especially for Latinos, we don't have that. And I think that would change our world. I think it would provide us an opportunity that's concrete and like tangible for us to make our things and to tell our stories. Um, yeah. Yeah.
I agree. I want that space too. Trust me, I'm putting it out into the universe. So yes, ding ding. Mahalia, how about you?
This is a very layered question, kind of complicated. So for me, being Haitian, there's a debate within the Haitian community on whether or not they identify with being Latinx, or in whatever. So it's a complicated question for me because I identify as it, but like sometimes even from people in my own community, I get side eyes or like looks like, what do you mean? So it can be very complicated in that sense. But in terms of filmmaking, I feel like I definitely have the community here in Atlanta, and I love Atlanta filmmakers because they're so hungry for more. And everybody just wants to collaborate, and everybody wants to create their own content. Everyone kind of has this entrepreneurial mindset, which I absolutely love, because everyone wants to create their own brand, which I think is great versus, going to the studio and having someone else create your brand for you. But one of the things I would love to see more in our community is, yes, absolutely having a space for us. And then in terms of like, I just love to see more pre-production in Atlanta, like working on professional sets. I see so many, film sets filming around town. We can have like 30 films filming in one area all at the same time. But like, I would love to have like a legitimate writer's room where we can all come together and I'll actually curate like, content and go straight to like streaming services and stuff like that. So that's one thing I would just love to see more.
Mahalia, I feel I want to like expand on that though, because on
Yeah.
you not feeling identified because you're kind of neither here nor there with your Latinidad as well. And I feel like I've had this conversation with Erik before, but I would love for you to expand on that, because that's one of the questions that is coming up next. And Erik, I'll come back to you because I want to hear from you as well on your community. But I would love, Mahalia, if you don't mind, on expanding on that. I'm just talking about what would you like to see as a community for yourself personally and people that you identify with to have here in Atlanta that we are really lacking, that could be pretty amazing to have in our community here in Atlanta?
I'd like to see more space for Afro-Latinos, I think. I think that there's a bit of a hesitancy there, because it's again like an identity crisis of, okay, do I go Black or do I go Latino? And the reality is you're both. You're both. So I would love to see more space for that and more conversations, because sometimes people like to view things very black and white, and there's a lot of gray area and there's a lot of intersectionality, which is, it's funny because overall as Latinos, we know there's intersectionality, but when it comes to this one specific thing, it's like no one really wants to touch it or talk about it. So I would love to see more of a space where we can have these open and honest conversations. And then just, I don't know, I'd love for more Haitians to like identify as Latino as well. I feel like a lot of the stuff that I'm hearing back is like, oh, well, we don't feel accepted, so why should we identify as that? So if there was a way where we could all just come together and talk it out and then celebrate, that would be fantastic.
Let's do it. Let's do a night. Let's just bring people together in a room and you'll lead the conversation, and that'd be great.
Because I'm telling you, like, you put on some Elvis Crespo, I'm telling you, Haitian people will come nowhere and we'll start.
Thank you, Mahalia. Erik, how about you?
Yeah, and just to add to what Mahalia is saying, a lot of like Latino spaces are very racist. So I think that we have to do a lot of internal work. And brown and white Latinos really need to we need to step it up and call those things out, because the reality is that a lot of, specifically for like for Puerto Rican, I know it's different in other places, but for Caribbean spaces, our culture is, it's thanks to Black Puerto Ricans, Black Cubans, Black Dominicans, all of that. So I think that if we don't step it up and make sure that those spaces are safe and their voices are protected, I think we're gonna lag. But that's just parentheses. In terms of community, I think that it's an evolving community. But the community that I have is thanks to people like Denise, that they're working very hard to make sure that our community stays organized in a space. And yeah, a lot of my community, of my community as Latina creatives came from knowing Denise and knowing just a lot of her efforts with Gabriela, who's also one of my hermanas, Gabriela Ortiz. And I think that there's space to grow. There's space to create space and create a home, like Erika was saying, because for me it's very hard to find that. In it, I got people that I can trust who are amazing Latina creators, but do we have a hub? Do we have a space? We don't. And also there's a lot of homes for Latinas that aren't safe for Latinas. So I think that is something that we have to just cultivate internally. But I'm hopeful, and every time I meet another Latina, I'm like, just let's create, let's write something, let's just do something. It doesn't have to, like, just let's do something. But I think keeping that spirit up of making sure that we're creating something for everybody is essential.
And I have to say, shout out to you, Denise, because you really keep the community connected. Because when I have something, we're like, who do we talk to? Obviously, Denise.
Absolutely.
Know that like you are loved by so many people, and we really appreciate everything that you do for our community.
You cannot make me cry right now. This is going to be recorded and shared and put on platforms, and I'm already starting to get, you can't do that. Okay. I was going to say that I heard a saying the other day is, inclusion is being invited to the party, but equity is being asked to dance.
Yeah. And
you know what I mean? And I really resonated with that one, you know, like, yeah, come to the party and come just be with everybody. But if you're not asked to dance and to join the party and be a part of the group, then it's not the same thing. And so for me, I didn't grow up with a community. And I think much like a lot of us from this same background, having a creative career wasn't always encouraged. And so it was, if anything, discouraged. And not all of us have that experience, but at least for me personally, I'm like, okay, well, because I didn't have it growing up and I came to Atlanta, I'm like, okay, I want people to talk to that I can talk to about the same things and be creative with. And it's because of all of you that any of this is possible, because you're using your voices. You're not staying quiet. You're using your pens and your laptops to write and to create and to put all your work out there. So thank you guys for being here, for taking the time to come to panels and to be proactive and use your voice so that other people can hear and see you in this platform and feel identified as well. So there would be no comunidad without all of you. So let's start with that. But I wanted to touch on something which I've had this conversation with Erik many times, and I always kind of look to him for guidance about this topic in particular. And Mahalia, you touched on it, which is the Latinidad, right? The identifying Latina, Latino, Latinx, Latine. And I would love to hear how you all identify, if it's even an issue for you all, because it's a topic of conversation that weighs very heavy on many people. And is that something that weighs on you presently? Is it something that that has an effect in your field in what you do at this time? Eddie, can we start with you? Let's start with you, please.
You start before you start the hard conversation with me. I think for me it's not an issue because I'm first Puerto Rican, then I'm Caribbean, then I'm Latino, right? And I think that we just have to take it as identities. I think that it's an identity to people, and what they want to be called, you should call them that because that's who they are. So I think that there's a lot. I'm one of the Latinos who don't like the word Hispanic. I have issue with it, and even the concept of Latinidad. If we celebrated Latinidad as a group of communities and a group of identities, that would be wonderful. But we celebrate Latinidad almost like as a monolith, everybody clumped together. And I think that's dangerous because everybody has so many identities and so many struggles, right? And I think that for me, I love my Latina siblings, but I think that it's very much on like how does that person wants to be identified, because there's Latinos who don't like the word Latino. They want to be called by their nationality, and that's completely valid. So I think that listening to people is the issue that we should it's a thing that we should do, because solving this Latinidad crisis, as a lot of people are calling it, it's not a crisis, it's just something. It's just listening to people, how they want to be identified and how they want to be called, and allowing space for that. If we allow space for that in a lot of our Latino and Latina spaces, that's the fix. Just let people be within those spaces, because we just try to, just answer things, and we don't like. As a Puerto Rican, I don't know the struggle of immigration. However, Puerto Ricans are the only right now dealing with colonialism. Like, I've seen the repercussions of that in my family. And I think the only country in Latin America who understands that is Haitians, because of the history with colonialism. I mean, obviously everybody was colonized, but because of the struggles of the Haitian community, I can relate to a lot of those conversations. But I think it's just allowing those spaces. Like, even though I don't understand the struggle of immigration, I'm just gonna allow space for those conversations to happen. I don't need to chime in, but I just need to make sure that those spaces and those conversations are being pushed forward. And the same thing when I talk about colonialism, I expect for people to help me push that forward. So I think it's just allowing people to just speak up and identify with what they want to be identified.
But then on productions, how do you feel that people should react to that? Because I think it's a point of conversation, right? Where even, for example, our title for tonight, Latinx representation, and a lot of groups, I have Latinx filmmakers Atlanta, but then there's Latina as well. So, because I have the same feelings as you, where I respect however you want to be identified. And I expect that you respect me however I want to be identified. So how do you feel that productions should lead with that? And maybe Mahalia, you can touch on this as well.
I think just allowing the space for conversation. I think what happens a lot is people are like, nope, let's not even talk about it. Let's just stick to what we know and call it a day. And I think it kind of goes to cancel culture, because I feel like a lot of people are afraid of like what the repercussions are versus what they can benefit from having the conversation, because it's okay to have conversations like this and you'll learn and understand more. So I think it's providing that space, safe space, and just allowing people to express themselves. And I think when it comes to productions, they're so rigid sometimes, and sometimes it's more focusing on the product versus the people. Mm-hmm. And I think that if you focus too much on the product, you lose a lot of the essence of what the film is going to be about. So you have these conversations in pre-production. You need to have representation within your department head, so that way everyone is looking at it from a different perspective, and that way it's a true collaboration. Because if everyone's thinking about it in one way, you're doing something wrong. Like, everyone should have a little bit of they should be able to see things a little differently. And I think that's how you can tell truly a universal story.
Thank you, Erika.
I'm like brimming. I think it's so.
There's a lot.
Like, how long do we have? No, I'm just kidding. To go on the production thing, really, it's look at your staff. Are you telling a story that has people in front of the camera that need to identify a certain way? Put them behind the camera. I don't want to get another audition that has 3 pages of English needed to be translated in Spanish. Hire a Spanish speaking writer, you know? And I can only speak from my experience, but I've not encountered another Latino, Latina, Latinx person who says, no, you are this. It has always been dictated from the outside. It has always been a insert all of them person who says, no, this is a Latinx conversation. You know what I mean? I have never had the experience where someone has told me, no, we're going to call you Latinx today, you know? So it's put those people on your team, on your staff, in your camera department, in your grip department, wherever you can, wherever is appropriate, that what's in front of the camera is matched behind the camera, and especially in those writers' rooms, you know. So that would be my first thing. And I think, you know, to go off of the idea that everyone should be identified and called what they want 100%. And it's because they haven't been listened to that I think that this feels like such a struggle. It's people who haven't been listened to, people who don't feel seen, people who don't feel heard, people who have felt a lot in our culture, they've had to hide, they've had to repress their selves and their family selves, that it's kind of like a point of tension because there hasn't been that liberation of just be. You know, we have to fight to be something, you know, and I my struggle with that is very, like, you know, unique to our own experiences. But I remember that I rejected it because I had the privilege too, because sometimes I didn't look Hispanic if I straightened my hair. You know what I mean? So I would reject it because I was bullied out of it for a little bit. You know, I was the president of my Latina club, but I didn't really walk and dress and talk like all of them. So I was kicked out. And then I was like, well, then I'm not Latina. And that was the biggest heartbreak that I think my person could have ever had, you know, until, you know, I'm going off a tangent, but my dad refused to speak English to me the entire time I grew up. It was Spanish through and through. So he's like, you want to forget this? Good luck, you know? You know, and I think it's because, again, those boxes, I didn't fit into their box, but I'm my own box. I'm like you were saying, I can't remember who. Oh shoot, but we're both. I'm this and that. You know what I mean? And so it's I am proud to be Latina. I am proud to be Mexicana. And so I'm going to cling on to it because I felt unheard. I felt like I made myself unheard. You know what I mean? Like I did that to myself. And that's something that I'll make up for the rest of my life. I forgot where I was, but that's how I feel. I don't know.
I think that's fantastic. You said, I mean, you're hitting the nail on the head. Caitlin, how about you? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, just briefly, just thinking to something that Erika said and many of you said, just again, if there's a message we can send through this, it's really like there is not a shortage of talent within this community in any field. Like there are incredible writers, cinematographers, production designers that identify as part of this community. And so at a certain point, you've got to look and you've got to say, like, when is enough with the laziness, you know, because there are so many resources now available of how to find these incredible artists. And like Mahalia was saying, I think a big thing of it, hopefully, especially in Atlanta, is going to be bringing more pre-production here, investing in this community from the start, investing in getting representation from the start. There's no excuse anymore, you know, there's really not. And you know, I again have an interesting thing with identity and like Erik said really well, I just I want to respect people and I want to be respected, you know, golden rule. So it's just it's calling people how they want to be called. You know, I have had interesting experiences of being in Chile and, you know, having heard things about myself in Spanish and then being able to whip around and say, ay, pero weón, ¿qué hablas? You know, like I can play right back. Yeah, I think, and similar to, you know, my mom who immigrated here, and watching her encounter a whole lot of horrible racism and being called my nanny for most of my life, you know, like it's encountering those stories has defined a lot of my identity, and it took me a really long time to really feel secure in that. But I'm really grateful for that journey and all those funky obstacles and all the people that have given me the strength and power to really accept and own my own identity.
That's beautiful. All you guys are saying such wonderful things. Wait, Mahalia, did you want to say something?
Oh, I was just
saw
gonna,
you were oh, okay, okay.
I was just gonna say
Go ahead.
thing that my mom always said to me growing up was, there are very few things that people cannot take away from you. It's your spirituality, your heart, and your culture. That is going to stick with you till you die. So you got to rep it till you're in the grave. So like something like that kind of message is always kind of stuck with me. So like when it comes to like community and stuff, I'm proud to always rep my Haitian flag. I'm proud to always call myself Latina. Like I will rep it until I am gone.
I love it. Okay, so now to switch gears a little bit, we were touching, let's see, we wanted to talk about, any resources or networking events that you feel you could share that you wouldn't mind not gatekeeping with our audience, right? Because it could be young filmmakers, you know, filmmakers that are already established, people that are wanting to listen to this because they're wanting to learn and they're wanting to take initiative and understand our culture better. Are there any resources or any advice that you would give to people that are watching this right now, whether they're in filmmaking or not, that would help them kind of keep the conversation going and moving forward?
Well, first of all, if you're not connected with Denise, you're doing the wrong thing. That's step number one.
True. That is very true.
Yes, that's right. Email me, call me, I'll tell you what you need to do.
Yeah.
And then for beginner filmmakers, you know, if you're looking to make your first short film, the best advice anyone can ever tell you to do is just go out and do it. Go get your script, pick up your phone, just shoot it, because that is the biggest hurdle. Once you figure out how to do your first film, you'll grow stronger and stronger the more you continue to make them. And of course, your first film, you're never going to want to look at it again. It's going to make you, might make you throw up.
Erik
But
knows about that. Erik knows.
Yes.
It's important for you to just do it, because the more you do it, it's a skill. The more you do it, the more you practice, the better you will get and the more that you will learn. So even if you feel like you don't have the best cameras, best lights, doesn't matter. Go get yourself a lamp, use your iPhone or whatever phone you have, and just go create it. And then in terms of getting into community, I know for me as a beginner filmmaker, Facebook groups were like the biggest help I could ever get. There are so many different Facebook groups, from Georgia Production Assistance, Atlanta Film Group. There are just so many of them. And once you start to join one, it will suggest 100 different ones to you.
Yes.
People are always posting, hey, I need a PA, or hey, I need a production designer, or just, they're always looking for someone to help and collaborate. And just getting into those groups and just starting to have conversations with people will propel you immediately. Because Atlanta, you're like 3 degrees from knowing someone that can help you out with what you need. It's just a matter of getting out there and talking to somebody. So getting into those groups is a great way to start those conversations.
Erik?
for me, I just always try to be as respectfully outspoken. Um, I've always been kind of outspoken, and a lot of the big opportunities that I have is because I've said something about, hey, y'all not doing something.
Mhm.
Like one of my mentors right now, the amazing Julianne Cromit, and she's an amazing Latina doing amazing work. She was the VP of equity, diversity, equity, inclusion for Disney. Now she has her own firm, which is Collective Moxie, that I'm working with her. There it was because I spoke up, and somebody said something kind of weird in a Latino gathering, and I was like, y'all not giving opportunities to local Latinos. And she was like, we need to talk. And a lot of the thing is because a lot of the big opportunities that I've had is because I've constantly been speaking out. Just I more on the I don't know, philosophical side. I don't know, words are escaping me right now, but having conversations with other Latina creatives is such an important thing. Like, obviously I talk to Mahalia every single day, but like how just talking about our experiences is something healing, but it helps you see the world differently. Like, how many times I've enjoyed coffee with Denise and we're talking about something that just helps you just put it out there. And I think just connecting with other Latina is such an important part of your career and your creative mind, that expanding of that is just amazing. And going to a lot of networking events, joining a lot of organizations here, Latina in media. It's amazing organizations that's doing a lot and it's gonna keep doing amazing things. And other organizations like somoslife.org, is like created by Latinos, giving space to Latinos everywhere. So I think that's things that are creative for us, and just connect with those people and just asking people like, hey, can I grab a coffee? People love coffee, and specifically Latinos. We love talking. Like, it's fine. So
You'd
just
be
ask.
surprised. People will say yes to a cup of
Exactly.
coffee.
Just do it and just connect with people, and that will help you grow in so many ways, that even though if you don't get something physical, you will learn something, and you would just, keep that for your career, and it's going to help you a lot.
Erika.
I would echo the idea that Atlanta itself is very easy to get a hold of people and is really accessible. So I feel that, like, make that reach out, ask for that cup of coffee, and then you will get plugged in, and you will see the benefits of that.
Yeah.
I think that in the idea of organizations, I think we're building that, and we're in the process of trying to figure out what that looks like for Atlanta. Because I know that there's different ones in different parts of the country, but I feel that, like, I think we're getting there. I think we're going to have a solid foundation of actual resources, whether it's fiscal, whether it's I dream of a database with all of our names in it, so we can
Oh
just, like,
God.
maybe I'll do that over the summer. I don't know. But yeah, I think we're getting there, and I think just hanging on to this group, even, I'm excited to reach out to the two of you and get to know you all a little bit better. Yeah.
Caitlin.
Yeah, I'll jump in, agreed to all of it. And then just thinking from I mentioned a film festival earlier that gave Erika and I a really awesome opportunity, which is the official Latino Film Festival, which is run by Danny Hastings. And it's really, it set our world on fire in so many ways. So I would highly recommend checking that festival out, just in the sense of being able to see content made by Latinos for Latinos and for communities beyond. I mean, I just think it's a pretty great film festival. Organizations like NALIP, NHMC as well, just kind of looking into and looking into other Latina production companies, like Ojalá Productions comes to mind. We have the internet. Stalking people on Instagram is fun when they are inspiring you to do more and do better. And yeah.
Just really quickly, I just thought of Georgia Film Impact. That's locally brewed in Atlanta. The problem with the bigger organizations is we're not on the map for them yet. And that's something that I'd like to figure out how to work on. But Georgia Film Impact has 2 cycles a year that is giving money to independent filmmakers without any like strings attached. And I say that, but like they're on our timeline. You know, we just got one for Trailer Trash Magic, and it's like it's to support our process, not like a deadline in 6 months. That's going to be hard to meet because we're self-financing. You know what I mean? Like and that's locally brewed in Atlanta.
I want to add to that too. Erik and Mahalia, you guys went to SCAD. SCAD has a Facebook group too, that you don't have to go to SCAD to be a part of the group. And a lot of times if you join the group and there are SCAD films, like, you know, end of year films that are being put together, they're looking for crew from top to bottom. So cast, crew, behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, post, pre, that's a really great resource. Did you say Nosotros, Caitlin? I think Nosotros is another one. And then I recently started following the Writers Guild, because I'll subscribe and they'll actually post out virtual workshops and virtual like talkbacks. They're having one on the 12th, which I already signed up for, and they're for free. There's a writer, her name is Gloria Calderon Kellett. She created, she did the remake of One Day at a Time, and then also With Love. She's an actress, showrunner, producer. She has a full-on, from beginning to end, how to write a script, how to be a producer on YouTube, and it was created by Pero Like. And it's literally put together like a curriculum, which is really, really great to watch. And then Greenlit ATL here in Atlanta is another one. They have a huge networking community that they do every month. I believe it's on Thursdays, but I'm not exactly sure which Thursday of the month. But it's a huge one to get connected to. Maggie Bush is one of the writers of Tyler Perry. She loves to go there. She loves community. She's all about connecting with people. And then Ernestine Morrison, who heads the networking event, is I call her like the Oprah of Atlanta, because she is just like so great at just like, you get a this and you get, she's so great. She's awesome. Yeah. And then Mahalia, like you said, Facebook groups and stuff, but Atlanta Film Festival, now, and they have always, but I think especially with just us voicing and presenting people that we could suggest should also be on their panels, there is a little bit more, there's more representation, and there are workshops and creative conferences, virtual and in person. So I'll plug that for them as well, because I think that I'll be there. I know that if you live in Atlanta, going to the Atlanta Film Festival and being a part of the conferences is really fun, because you get to connect with your community too. So I know I'll be there. So if any of you are going, hopefully I'll see you there. And we are wrapping up, and I want to ask one last question, and this is a fun question. For any of you, what is the one dish that you miss, that you wish you could have, if you could right now, that you are just like, oh my God, I could eat this every day?
That's a long list.
Just pick one. What's the last meal, your last meal from back home that you're like, oh, my mom used to make this, or my grandma, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't wait to eat it. Erika, you got one? Go.
Yeah. I would say two, and I can't decide. Gorditas con frijol, crema, queso, todo el picadillo. And then I would say mole from Puebla.
Ooh, qué rico. Caitlin?
I'm going to say, this is like the biggest debate in my head right now. I'm 38 weeks pregnant, everybody. So thinking about food is something different for me. It's like, when I think about it now, I have to have it. So now I'm just trying to think about where I'm going to get it, or if I'm going to make it. But for me, it's a Chilean dish called pastel de choclo. It's amazing. It's got corn, it's got minced beef, it's got a lot of onions, it's got olives, it's got huevos. It's delicious, and it's the most best comfort food?
Oh, how good. That sounds delicious. Mahalia?
For me, it would be a Haitian dish called légumes sauce pois and jus blanc. They're, oh, sorry, I think my camera cut out.
No, you're good. We can see you.
Sorry. Yeah, légumes sauce pois jus blanc. It's just greens with beef in it, beans, and white rice. And it is my comfort food. My grandma would always make it for us when we were reigning or when we came back from college or anything like that. So that's my dish.
Sounds amazing. Erik?
So I got two, which is obviously mofongo, but specifically mofongo con camarones, like that always hit. Like I love it. Also tripleta, which I love tripleta, which is like a sandwich with 3 types of meat and it has like mayo ketchup and everything, and it's like has a bunch of stuff, but it's amazing. Just like quick food that you can get anywhere, and yeah. So I would say those two.
For me, it's fricassé de pollo, which is a chicken stew with lots of veggies and like white rice, could be yellow rice too, and throw in a banana. And I know it's a weird combination, but you slice up some banana pieces. I love seeing your faces talking about this. I'm telling you, fricassé with slices of banana, then you have a banana and a little bit of rice and chicken, and it's a flavor bomb. I'm telling you, it's so good. Bueno, we're gonna close this out, and I'm gonna say, oh, Mahalia, I can't hear you. Say it again.
Sorry, I was gonna say I do the same thing with Haitian spaghetti, where you put bananas on the side and eat it. Listen, 10 out of 10. Chef's
Right?
kiss.
There's like certain combinations that you can't knock it till you try it. You know what I mean? I'm gonna close this out and say thank you, Caitlin, Erika, Mahalia, Erik. Thank you so much for being such amazing voices in our community. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for sharing your voices with this platform. Thank you to the Atlanta Film Festival, to Linda Burns, this creative conference. I'm so excited, and I'm grateful to the Atlanta Film Festival for allowing this to happen. So thank you everyone for watching. Adios. Okay, I'm just gonna stop recording. Don't anybody hang up. Hold on. They'll cut this.